Hola, buenos días, buenas tardes o buenas noches y bienvenido o bienvenida a este video. So, let's take a look. How many of these can you get right? This is going to be a basic present tense Spanish quiz. The first one, yo blank español todos los días. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, remember, we're just in the present tense here, so we're going to have hablo. Okay, yo hablo. Careful with accents in Spanish, because if I were to say this, yo hablo, it sounds like I'm speaking in the past tense for él, ella, or usted. So focus on the accents here. So it's just going to be hablo. In Spanish, the natural emphasis on a word falls on the second to last vowel. So this is our last vowel. Remember that vowels are just A, E, I, O, U. So O, in this case, is our last vowel, and then A is our second to last vowel. So the natural emphasis falls right there on that A. However, because the natural emphasis falls there, we don't need to put it there. That's why this pronunciation would just be hablo without an accent. Okay? Muy bien. Okay, número dos. Ella blank en la cafetería. Okay, she eats in the cafeteria. So here we're going to have come. Okay, she eats. Now, a big thing to remember is that in Spanish we have conjugation tables. So for regular ER verbs, which this is a regular ER verb, comer, we would have these endings, and I'll put right. Let's see, I'll put it right here. We would have o, es, hemos, and then en. And then I don't really teach vosotros there. So let me scoot this over. So we would have o, es, hemos, and en. Okay, ella come en la cafetería. So this is the él, ella, usted here. Okay, él, ella, usted. Right? So that would be ella come en la cafetería. Okay? Hope this is making sense so far. All right, I'm going to slide this over a little bit here. All right, excellent. Número tres, nosotros blank en México. Okay? So based off our conjugation rules for IR verbs, it will be vivimos. Nosotros vivimos en México. Something important to note is that in the nosotros form, in the present tense, it's actually exactly the same for the preterite tense. So in this case, if I were to change the sentence and I were to say, nosotros vivimos en México el año pasado, now instead of saying we live in Mexico, I'm saying we lived in Mexico last year. So in the nosotros form here, it's actually going to be the same in the present and preterite. So that's something to note. Okay, número cuatro. Tú blank muy amable. Okay, so here we're going to have tú eres muy amable. So, ser is an irregular verb, meaning it follows irregular conjugation patterns. Looking at our rules for ER verbs, we would think that this would be something like tú ses, for example, based off of our rules. But because ser is an irregular verb, it follows an irregular conjugation pattern. Just because a verb is irregular does not mean that we don't use it very often. It just means that it does not follow a regular conjugation pattern. Okay? Número 5. Ellos blank en la escuela. So, ellos están en la escuela. They are at school. Notice how the word at here is being used with the word en. Okay, here I'll go back there. En, okay? You would not say, ellos están a la escuela. That's incorrect. Because it sounds like the verb of estar, in this case, están, is directly affecting la escuela. But that's not necessarily the case. This verb is affecting the kids, and therefore, we would use en to say they are at school or in school. Okay, but we wouldn't say ellos están a la escuela. That would be incorrect. Okay? All right, número 6. Yo blank ejercicio por la mañana. Okay, this is going to be yo hago. Now, this is also irregular in that first person form. Yo hago. For the other ones, tú, él, nosotros, and ellos, it's going to be haces, hace, hacemos, and hacen. But hacer is irregular in the first person. Yo hago. Okay? And we're going to take a look at why we do some of that in a second. Okay? Tu blank temprano. You go to bed early. So notice here we have, boom, that little se on the end. Okay? This is a reflexive verb, meaning that we do this to ourselves. So in this case, and I'm going to have to kind of go off here, we're going to have tú te acuestas, okay, temprano. Okay, so you go to bed early. So te is being used because we're talking about you. That's our reflexive pronoun. Remember, acostarse is something that we do to ourselves. I don't lay someone down. Acostar is also to lay down. I don't lay someone down, nor do I put them to bed. I'm doing that to myself. A very common verb that I like to use to talk about this is the verb bañarse. Okay? So when I say something like me baño, okay, I do that to myself. I'm not bathing someone else. If I say yo baño, it sounds like I'm bathing someone or something else, which is why we need to put that me there, because we're doing that to ourselves. Yo me baño. Okay? Número 8. Nosotros no blank ir al cine hoy. Okay? Here, we're going to have podemos. Okay? In the nosotros form, this is going to just be podemos. However, for the other forms, yo, tú, él, it's going to stem change, which we're going to take a look at in 1 second. So, puedo, puedes, puede, podemos, no stem change, and pueden. Okay? Ella blank a la fiesta esta noche. Ella viene a la fiesta esta noche. So here, once again, we're seeing a stem change. In the nosotros form, no stem change. So we'd have venimos, but for the rest, it will just be viene. Okay, that's stem change there. Ellos blank tacos en el restaurante. So here we have the verb pedir. Once again, seeing a stem change. Ellos piden tacos en el restaurante. So let's take a look at what's going on here. We have 3 main patterns for stem changes. We have when a verb goes from e to ie. So in the example of pensar, for example, here is our e, and then it becomes pienso instead of penso. Okay? For o, we'll typically have it go to ue. So for example, in a verb dormir, we would have duermo. Okay? Duermo. Okay, meaning to sleep. And then also in the case of a verb like pedir, we also see sometimes e will become I. So pedir will now become pido. Okay? Hold on, technical difficulties here. So anyways, that's what's going on. Okay, technical difficulties. Okay, pido. There we go. Okay, all right. So here we can see these happen only in stressed syllables of the boot forms. So what we're saying is nosotros does not get affected by this. Okay? Awesome. Let's move on. Okay. All right. So now we have advanced things. All right. So yo siempre blank las reglas. Okay. So here we're going to have yo siempre sigo las reglas. Okay. Stem change. And also notice how now it's sigo instead of siguo. Okay. Some of these are irregulars and we just have to learn them. Okay, there's no special memorization strategy. Okay. Número 12. Mis amigos y yo blank mucho cuando estamos juntos. Check it out. We've got the reflexive here again. So, we have mis amigos y yo, which is going to be nosotros. So, we'll have nos, and then we'll have reímos. Okay, reímos. Nosotros nos reímos mucho cuando estamos juntos, because that is something that affects us. All right? Número 13. Tú nunca blank cuando llueve. Okay? Here, we're going to have tú nunca conduces cuando llueve. You never drive when it rains. In Mexico, we can also use the verb manejar. Okay? So, manejar, if it were conjugated, would be tú nunca manejas cuando llueve. Okay. Número 14. Mi mamá blank la verdad. Mi mamá me dice la verdad, okay? We also have kind of a weird thing going on here, decir being irregular there. Me dice la verdad. And then this right here is what we call an indirect object pronoun, me. They're highly useful, and if you don't know about them, I recommend that you check those out here on my channel or inside my Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy. Okay? Número 15. Los niños blank a dormir a las 9. So, here, once again, we have reflexive, okay? So we'll put se, representing los niños, and then we have van. It is totally irregular. So it is going to be voy, vas, va, vamos, and van. So, los niños se van a dormir a las 9. How'd you do? Leave a comment down below. Muchas gracias por ver el video. If you want to learn more Spanish from me, click the link in the video description to check out our Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy. Our goal is to help you have a 10-minute conversation in Spanish in 90 days without feeling confident. So check it out by going to SpanishWithNate.com or clicking the link in the video description. Muchas gracias. Hasta luego.